Hey guys, alright, today we're watching Top 10 Facts of World War II by LEMMiNO. 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 Alright, it's been about a month since I watched that video on Roanoke by this YouTuber. Excellent. That video was excellent. Really well done research in it, well animated. So I'm wondering if this is going to carry over into this top 10 facts video. Let's go ahead and find out. I don't know exactly what to expect aside from, well, top 10 facts. I'm wondering if these are going to be the more typical popular facts of World War II, or if these are going to be the more you have to know stuff about World War II. Like, you have to spend time looking into World War II to know these facts or whatnot. So let's go ahead and watch. That music's gonna be copyrighted.
During World War II, British Security Service, or MI5, had a program called the Double Cross system. It was a counter-espionage system that relied on spies and double agents to spread disinformation.
Yeah.
For example, Agent Zigzag or Eddie Chapman leaked falsified information to Germany by reporting that their bombs were hitting the intended target, central London. But in reality, they were undershooting by several kilometers and missed every single time. Because of this, the Germans never corrected their aim and continued to undershoot for the rest of the war. Another disinformation plan was Operation Mincemeat. The British attached falsified top-secret documents to a corpse and dumped it outside the coast of Spain. When the German High Command got a hold of the documents, they were fooled into believing that British forces planned to invade Greece and Sardinia and quickly moved to intercept. In reality, the intended target was Sicily, and the Allies took on the Axis powers by surprise.
So this deception campaign, yes, it's actually, there's so many stories about this deception, about the British deception, the spies that they sent across the English Channel into France, Austria, Hungary, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Italy, just all throughout Axis-occupied Europe. Just crazy what they did. Like, it's like a fucking movie, honestly, and it's great. It's really cool.
And while the Nazis had trouble identifying these spies and double agents, Britain's double cross system was extremely successful. In fact, after the war, it was discovered that every single agent that Germany sent to Britain had either been apprehended or simply surrendered.
Holy shit.
The only exception was one agent who was never detected, because he committed suicide.
Oh my god.
An incredible amount of bombs were dropped.
Can we just talk about that for a second? Every single one of Hitler's spies that he sent to Britain were captured, were discovered, and surrendered. Except for one, and it's because he killed himself. Probably because he was about to be apprehended in a way. Or he had blown his cover in some way. That's crazy. Like, that just shows how, like, skilled, I guess, MI5 is, the Allied intelligence service was at this time. If they're still as good, who knows? You know, you don't learn about, like, we're still learning about CIA operations in the late 1900s. We still don't have all that information. A lot of it's still classified.
During World War II, it's been estimated that the Allies dropped 3.4 million tons of explosives across Europe and Asia. That's 27,000 tons every month. What's even scarier is that anywhere between 5 to 15% never detonated, which means that they are still buried beneath our feet, waiting to explode at any given moment. In Germany alone, over 5,500 bombs are discovered every year.
Holy, wait, over 5,000 bombs a year? Goddamn. That's a lot of bombs. Now, I wonder. I don't know. I know somewhat of the mechanics of a gun. I don't know really the mechanics of a bomb. Bomb is a different kind of engineering. What has to go wrong? If anyone knows, what has to go wrong for a bomb not to, explode on contact? Something? Is there a primer that doesn't hit? Is there a chemical imbalance that prevents them, that causes them not to ignite properly or something? I don't fucking know.
During the final months of the war, the horrifying Japanese unit called Unit 731 planned for a long-distance biological attack on the United States. The attack had no military value but was seen as a final attempt to dissuade the US from invading the Japanese mainland. They called it Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. 5 submarines were to be sent across the Pacific Ocean, each carrying 3 aircrafts loaded with plague-infected fleas. The submarines would then surface near the coast of San Diego and launch several kamikaze attacks on the city. The plague would in turn infect people in the area and slowly kill off the population. The operation was to be carried out on September 22, 1945. However, because the US used an equally devastating weapon, the atomic bomb, only a month before, Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night never took place.
I wonder if that would have worked. Would the plague-filled lice or fleas or whatever have survived the trip? And then 2, would them being loaded onto a kamikaze plane and that plane crashing into the west coast of the USA, would it really have done anything? Would it really have infected people? And then that's just assuming that those submarines are able to cross the entire Pacific Ocean and make it to close enough to the west coast to, not get detected by, 1, the American Pacific Fleet, and then 2, also obviously the British fleet in the Pacific region was not as numerous as it was in the Atlantic, right? The Atlantic was pretty much the British fleet zone for World War II, while the Pacific became the American fleet zone. But obviously both sides would both countries would have some number of ships on, on the sides that they weren't really focused on, so to say. Like there was obviously American fleet activity in the Atlantic, and obviously British fleet activity in the Pacific, because the British had colonies all over the world, so of course they needed their ships around, blah blah blah. But assuming those submarines have to somehow cross the entire Pacific Ocean undetected, I don't think it would have succeeded. And then when they surface, their kamikazes have to make it to the coast and crash and not get shot down first. It's probable that at least one could make it, maybe, but highly improbable. I don't think those subs could have made it.
At the end of the war, Japan and Russia never signed a formal peace treaty. And
Japan and the Soviet Union. Japan is, I guess, technically still at war with the Soviet Union, but they are not at war with Russia.
Ending hostilities. So between them, World War II is technically still ongoing.
As I said, Soviet Union. Russia was not. There's a difference. Kinda. Russia is the biggest Soviet, or was the biggest Soviet in the USSR. Like Ukraine was a Soviet. I think that's proper use of the word Soviet. Belarus, I believe, was a Soviet. Kazakhstan, I think, maybe was a Soviet as well. But yeah, they were not. The Soviet Union no longer exists, but Japan is technically, I guess, still theoretically at war with the Soviet Union.
The Nazi originates from the German word Nationalsozialist. However, when Hitler became the leader of the group in 1920, the original abbreviation for the National Socialist Party was NASUS, or simply NSDAP.
Yep.
But the word Nazi also derives from a Bavarian word meaning simple-minded or a foolish person. It's believed that this led opposers to instead favor the term Nazi, and the word eventually made its way back to Germany as well.
Huh. So they were making fun of
The
themselves?
most successful German interrogator of World War II was a man named Hans Scharf. What's interesting is that despite all the horrible things that occurred during World War II, he never once used any torture techniques to conduct his interrogations. Instead, he treated prisoners with kindness and respect and pretended to be their friend. Hans was well known for taking his prisoners on a stroll through the nearby woods. But he didn't use these nature walks as a time to directly ask his prisoners obvious military-related questions, but instead relied on the prisoners' growing desire to speak to anyone outside of their isolated captivity. In doing so, prisoners often revealed bits and pieces of useful information Hans had been instructed to acquire, frequently without them ever realizing they had done so.
That is
His
smart.
techniques were so successful that after the war he held lectures around the US, including the Pentagon, about his unusual interrogation strategies.
You know, being kind, honestly, I feel like has the best effects on, well, as shown there by Franz Schaff. Schar? Was it Schaff? Schaff? Yeah. You know, you're fighting a war, probably tired of fighting. You just kind of want to relax, so, you know. And if there's certainly psychological things that I think come with being tortured. For one, I think if you are being tortured, the benefit to giving away the information is that you're no longer going to get tortured, and that's what makes some people break. However, for some people, you know, maybe you're thinking in your mind, what guarantees do I have that they will not torture me? If you're being treated kindly, you know, it's like, you know, there's, I don't know how to explain it too well. I just feel like there's some subtle psychological thing that happens in the brain where it's the difference between being tortured and being treated kindly, treated humanely, that makes one more willing to reveal information even though accidentally. I think I explained myself decently.
In early 1940, the Nazis began their occupation of Denmark to facilitate a planned invasion of the strategically more important target, Norway.
Poor Denmark.
As the Danish government was unprepared and heavily outnumbered, the invasion only lasted a couple of hours until they were forced to surrender. Despite of this, Denmark managed to save almost their entire Jewish population. In 1943, Hitler ordered all Danish Jews to be arrested and deported. When the Danish Resistance movement heard of this, they managed to secretly evacuate 7,220 of Denmark's 7,800 Jews to nearby neutral Sweden.
Yeah, no, that's kind of, I had to read this book years ago, over a decade ago. Yeah, over a decade ago. I was in elementary school. I do not remember what this book was called, but it was a book in which there's this Danish Jewish girl and her family, and they are hiding and they are trying to escape to Sweden. I don't remember the name of the book. I don't really remember too much of the plot, but I do remember, yeah, you know, Danish Resistance. Pretty fucking huge for, like, obviously the French Resistance and Polish Resistance are the two most famous, you know, resistance movements, I'd say. Obviously the French probably being the most famous in Western thought, in Western media. But for the size of the country, the Danish Resistance is fucking insane. For that small of a country to have, like, as huge, I guess, of a resistance movement that it did, and how successful that resistance movement was, despite it also being extremely close to mainland, like the heartland of Germany, of the Reich, and they were able to be as successful as they were. That's insane.
During World War II, it was difficult for the Coca-Cola company in Germany to import the necessary syrup they needed to make Coca-Cola. To circumvent this, the head of Coca-Cola decided to create a new product for the German market using only ingredients available at the time.
Oh, yeah.
The new soda became Fanta.
Yep.
The name was taken from the German word for imagination, Fantasie.
Yeah, that one's
When Hitler
wild.
visited Paris in 1940, the French cut the lift cables on the Eiffel Tower so that if Hitler wanted to visit the summit, he would have to climb all the 1,710 steps on his own. As a result of this, Hitler never climbed the Eiffel Tower, and it has been said that Hitler conquered France, but never conquered the Eiffel Tower.
French are so petty. What's this last one?
Came to people of half a dozen nations, and with freedom, controversy and problems to be solved with their own free hands. Rome, June 5th, 1944.
As the war came to an end, the Red Army marched into Nazi Germany and came across an horrific sight.
Oh, yeah.
During the 4.5 years of its existence, 1.3 million people were sent to Auschwitz. 1.1 million of them would never leave. The acts of inhumanity and cruelty.
Yeah, that's just so... It's so fucked to think about that. The one location, one camp, responsible for the death of 1.1 million people. Oh.
Conducted here cannot be expressed through words. But for many of those fortunate enough to be liberated, the nightmare had only just begun. Female survivors fell victims of rape by their supposed saviors as they helplessly tried making their way back home. Tens of thousands of women across Europe were plainly raped to death as the Red Army marched on. It has infamously become known as the Rape of Europe. The ones who managed to return home in the hopes of continuing their normal lives were crushed to find their homes either destroyed or now owned by someone else. With no home, no belongings, no money, and many without relatives or friends as they had all been killed in the war, would found themselves struggling to survive long after the war had ended. Over the course of the war, Auschwitz was staffed by roughly 7,000 members of the German SS, only 15% of whom were either killed or later convicted of war crimes, such as the commander of Auschwitz, who was captured in 1946 and then hanged in 1947. The ones who managed to escape could enjoy a fairly comfortable life in post-war Germany. Some even managed to escape Germany altogether using fake identities, never facing the consequences of the crimes they had committed.
Well, that got depressing. But, shouldn't be, I guess, surprised by that because it's World War II. It's very depressing. Wow. Good video. A lot of the a good amount of these facts were facts that, are kind of lesser known. So really good job on LEMMiNO's part. And obviously, I think when you're discussing World War II, I think you should always probably discuss the Auschwitz and the concentration camps. That's a very important part into the Nazi ideology. It was a significant part of their thought process of Hitler's goal in the war. His goal, his what he wanted the world to be like under the Reich, under his rule. So yeah. That's going to I don't have anything else to say. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Leave a suggestion leave a suggestion down below for what you want to see me react to next. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you.